Hi. In this video I will turn on Collide 4, which is a collaboration between Joranalogue Audio Design and Hainbach. I will turn this module on for the very first time. Please be warned, this is a very complex, well, it can be a very complex module. So if you came here to understand what Collide 4 is, and well, what a lock-in amplifier is, this is not the video for that, but I will of course make well, one or several videos going deeper into what lock-in amplifiers are and what Collide 4 is, because it's not just a lock-in amplifier in modular format, it's more. So in a minute I will just turn on my rack and well, start patching outputs and probably some inputs as well, just to well, see and explore what we can do with this module when we don't really understand it. I have found a video that actually succeeds in explaining what a lock-in amplifier is and how it works in a few simple and very easy to understand steps. So I watched that video once again last night, and I've just read through the manual, or I glanced at the manual a few minutes ago, just so I'm not completely flying blind here. Let's turn on my rack. So right from the bat, it's not very clear to me which output is actually just an oscillator, but since these two here are labeled OSC, I'll just patch one of these. Let's go through the oscilloscope here. And then into transmit 2. So we're not getting any signal. I'm sure it's just because I need to turn up some knobs here. So let's just try this. Let's switch to audio. Aha! There we go. Maybe I should use longer cables. I think that's better. So we're using the oscillator. I'm not sure if it's 1 or I. At this point, it really doesn't matter. So this is just, from what I remember from the manual, I'm guessing this is just the reference oscillator. And since it's a sine wave, it's no use filtering it. So the time constant is kind of a low pass filter. Well, not kind of, it is a low pass filter. And you can switch this to low or audio rates. This switch here is for the input section, which you can access here. So we're not using any inputs, so it's not doing anything. Let's sync my scope. So you have a fine tune as well. There's an oscillator symmetry knob. This has something to do with the through zero linear FM. When nothing is patched into the through zero linear FM jack, it just provides additional frequency control of a reference oscillator. So I'm turning down the filter gain, which does nothing because this is the bandpass filter. Well, this is the gain for the bandpass filter, which comes after the input section. Since this is not being used, we're not hearing anything. Well, we're not hearing any changes from this. Of course, I'm going to switch to using the input section as well, but since we are listening to the reference oscillator right now, let's just add some modulation, because why not? I'm going to use, well, no, let's use an output of filter 8 here, since we have these attenuators anyway. Let's first just use audio rate exponential FM. Well, nothing unexpected here, but well, it's very cool that we have this feature in this already complex module. What's this output giving us? So I'm guessing, yeah, these are just two outputs of the reference, and the X output, it's not giving us anything. No. So this is already an output, or this is a pair of outputs that uses some kind of computation with the input signal, and I'm guessing since there's nothing there, we're not hearing anything. By the way, anything that I'm saying in this video, take it with a few chunks of dirty sand. So yeah, that's frequency modulation exponential. Let's use the through zero linear. Is it linear? I'm not sure if it's linear. It is linear. Okay, so let's remove that. And, well, let's use an output of generate 3 here to patch into the input. And I'm going to use the positive input here. There's two. You can see these as just two inputs that are mixed together, with one being inverted, the in minus. But let's just use the positive input. Let's monitor this signal first so we know what we are sending into Collide 4. Let's make it a little bit stronger here. So there we go. So I'm going to just send this into Collide 4 here. And then let's use the monitor output for now. The monitor output shows us the signal from the input going through the bandpass filter before it's going through all the other computations. So let's see what we're getting here. Probably nothing because we have this knob set to off. There we go. This knob is kind of a rotary switch. It just switches how much gain we add to the original signal. At 0, it's unity gain. We can set the filter width here. Well, maybe I should turn this down a bit. We can set the filter width, and I'm guessing when it's completely at its maximum, we're not really filtering that much. You can hear this when I change the filter center, which is the filter frequency, at least when it's in free mode. But once I start closing the width down, you'll hear and see just interesting bandpass behavior. So this is a variable Q bandpass filter, which is very cool once you start pinging it. But let's hold that thought and just explore this a bit more. There's the filter gain. I think this is at the output of the filter. This is here to provide the next section of the module, which we're not listening to right now, with an as clean as possible signal. Because, well, this bandpass filter is being used to narrow down the source we're sending in, because lock-in amplifiers are generally used to, well, find small repetitive signals within noise. So if we can narrow down the part of the signal that we are actually using, so filtering out a lot of the noise that's on either side of our signal that we want to extract or analyze. I lost my train of thought there. Anyway, what I wanted to say is, if you narrow down what you're letting through, if you bandpass filter anything, the gain goes down usually, so it's good to have additional gain here. And it doesn't really matter if you look at Collide 4 as a measuring tool, lab equipment, or as a musical instrument. It's always good to have some gain behind the bandpass filter. There's some resonance as well. and this filter will self-oscillate, otherwise this ping input would not make that much sense. That was a really nasty peak. But well, that's to be expected when you turn up the resonance of a filter that much, and when you tune the filter frequency to the same frequency as the source. So this track and free switch here determines what the function of this filter frequency knob is. When you set it to track, this will kind of track the tuning of the reference oscillator, and the knob will just determine the offset to this, well, to the frequency set with the coarse and fine-tune controls of our reference oscillator, which we're not listening to right now. We're still listening to a signal from Generate 3. Let's switch this to track again. Oh wow. Okay, so let's listen to... Well, let's try this first oscillator output again. So this is really just the output for the reference oscillator. Yes. Without anything from the input. Well, so let's listen to the accent, I should say, and Y accent outputs. Yes, this was kind of what I was expecting. Let's turn this down. And what I was expecting was something unexpected, if that makes sense. So that was wild. Let's try... so once again, you can look at this time constant as just a low-pass filter. What we're actually listening to right now, if I remember correctly, by the way, you can see this LED lighting up red because we're overdriving something here. Why are we suddenly... I have to turn down the resonance. That's the problem. Okay, so... Well, I'm a bit newbie here. But, well, that's the entire point of this kind of video. And what we're listening to right here is a ring modulated output. And what is it ring modulating? Well, it's ring modulating the signal we're sending to the input here and the reference oscillator. And in a real lock-in amplifier, well, this is a real lock-in amplifier, but if you remember what I said, these are usually used to extract tiny repetitive signals from within noise, and by adjusting the frequency of the reference oscillator to the signal that we are looking for, and this is, well, experimentational, of course. You don't always know where the frequency is, but you can look for it by just sweeping the frequencies, and at some point you won't hear any noise, you just will hear a clear frequency, clear oscillation. I'm not going to try doing that here because that's not the point of this video, and really not the point of this module either. It's just here to experiment with and see what cool sounds we can get out of it. Okay, so maybe let's change the frequency of generate 3 here. This is a cool ring modulated sound. Now I can still use the filter for the input stage. So we're just ring modulating the filtered output. Well, so we are ring modulating the filtered version of the input signal. And if you don't want to filter the input section, you just turn the filter width completely open. Well, I kind of like it. Let's add a little bit of resonance. Let's turn down the frequency of the reference oscillator. Let's turn it up. Let's turn down the time constant, which is a low pass filter. I know I said this several times before, but these kind of videos can be so confusing that I like to repeat things over and over. Let's see what the oscillator symmetry is doing. Yeah, nothing really apart from changing the frequency of the reference oscillator, because we have nothing patched into the true 0 FM here. So let's just keep it centered. Right now we have this switched here to set to axis Y, which I think means that our, well, anyway, if you switch this to the right position, something with the reference is shifted out of phase, and then we can use Collide 4 as a frequency shifter, because that's how frequency shifters work, by using clever ring modulation with a phase difference of 90 degrees. I think to be able to hear this, we have to listen to these outputs here, which are the, well, frequency shifted outputs. And I think we choose downwards shifting or upwards shifting with this knob. I'm really not that sure about all of this actually. Let's also monitor this output here. I'm not going to send it through data, but just through the interface. So we are getting a stereo signal here. Which I always like very much. Being able to make stereo sounds from a mono source. So we are clipping, maybe we're just clipping data, I'm not sure. But let's turn down the gain anyway. And of course you have complete control over all of this with CV as well, which is something I haven't mentioned yet. Let's try finding a reasonable length of cable, and well, let's use contour 1 here to modulate the time constant or low pass filter. Let's do this like that. And I think at this point you start realizing why Hainbach jumped on board of this interesting Collide 4 train. If you watched any of his videos or well performances about or with lab equipment, sounds like this should be somewhat familiar. I'm clipping again. I'm really thinking it's just data. Sometimes data has a really hard time with loud signals. No, it's not just data. But it's explained in the manual that you should take care setting the gain right, and that, well, there's a lot of amplification on tap here. But, well, if you turn it up too much with already strong signals, you most certainly will clip, which is to be expected if you start amplifying eurorack signals within the eurorack environment. Well, it's easy to keep them in check as well because we have these two controls here. Let's try using another output of contour 1 here, maybe like the fall output. Maybe we can use this for just exponential FM. Let's try something else, maybe the tuning for the reference oscillator. Where is this? I think it's this input. I really like this. I mean, this with a little bit of reverb. Yeah, it's really nice. Well, at least I think so. Let's use another output of contour 1. Let's take the rise output to control, well, maybe the filter here. Or maybe the width. Let's start sliding these down till we're at audio rate modulation. And I'm seeing that there's inputs for these reference oscillators. So to be honest, to really know what these are, I have to once again read the manual and not just glancing over it, but thoroughly. But I'm happy that even with just glancing at the manual and having kind of a basic understanding of lock-in amplifiers, I was able to explain some of the functions of this module already. And I don't want to boast that I can understand things quickly. Really, my point is here that it's not that difficult of a module. But you of course have to do some experimentation and a little bit of reading if you really want to know what everything is doing. I also realize that some people just like turning knobs and getting awesome sounds, which is, well, in my opinion, still what's happening here as well. So now I've sent the output of filter 8 here, which is in audio rate and self-oscillating, into the X input here. And I'm not sure what's happening inside the module, what calculations are happening right now, but I am sure of the fact that I like how this sounds. There's these magnitude and phase outputs here on Collide 4. These are in lab context used to monitor the magnitude of the signal that's been buried in noise. And it also shows the phase relationship between the reference oscillator inside the lock-in circuit and the signal at the input. But well, in a modular context, we can just use this as modulators. These are strictly positive signals, by the way. Oh. Let's just send this into the frequency modulation of filter 8. And let's see if we can change a few parameters to make it sound differently. Maybe I should use something else. Maybe let's send this into contour 1. Now we're getting some interesting feedback happening. Let's use the monitor output on Collide 4 to modulate our channel 3 here. Let's use the phase parameter. And again, we're just listening to the outputs here on Collide 4, and we're using the X accent minus Y accent and the X accent plus Y accent outputs. These are the pitch shift outputs of Collide 4. Well, maybe let's listen to the regular X accent and Y accent outputs. because these are, well, interesting as well. So I've mistaken when I said that these two outputs are always strictly positive. I know the magnitude output is always positive. You can also see this from the red LED, but the phase output is not, which is showing from the LED. That's switching really fast between red and blue, giving us this purple that we're used to seeing with Joranalogue modules. But let's turn down all the frequencies of everything to see if we can get this to now we're able to see the two colors here. Well, sometimes it depends on how I set this. Anyway, let's pull everything out and just listen to how this thing sounds when pinged. Let me try out a few things because I'm doing something wrong here. I'm missing something. Aha! I found out what I was doing wrong. You should not turn down this knob to off, because then both the input signals are, well, turned off, but also the ping input is turned off. I thought this would be separate, but it's not. So now we can start playing around with this pinged Collide 4. Always take care when monitoring filters that you want to ping, and by monitoring I mean like your speakers or headphones. I have my volume turned down really low always because, well, I have some hearing issues. But if you're used to listening at higher volumes, please take care when pinging filters. Let's narrow down this bandpass filter. Wow, you can really make these small clicky pings. Yeah, variable Q bandpass filters are really, really nice to ping. Oh, too much gain. So that's a Hainbach kick drum there for you. I know Hainbach once made a video about his small modular portable case where he tried to mimic his test equipment setup. And I remember there was a variable Q filter in there he used to make a kick drum. I think he called it a Stockhausen drum or Stockhausen kick. So there you have it. Let's turn down the gain and oh wow, yeah. Let's turn down the gain and open the filter up a little bit. And by open up I mean increase the width of the band. Let's tune up the frequency and then adjust the resonance. I wonder if I can introduce some soft clipping or if it's always going to be hard clipping. Yeah. Okay, so let's explore. Let's turn on the main level here on transmit 2, just so I don't blow up my interface. Let's explore this hard clipping territory a bit. So you can make these really dirty bass tones. But let's turn down the gain. So there we have something nice going on. Let's listen to the Y accent output here. Which incorporates the reference oscillators. Okay, that's again nice, especially with all these voltage controls here. Let's use an output of filter 8 once again. Self-oscillating at audio rates to 0 frequency modulate. Maybe let's switch it to LFO rates here, so we have a different type of modulation, and let's use it to control the pitch of the reference oscillator. And let's use the signal from Generate 3 again, the same one we used earlier, to send into the input here. I'm really curious what's going to happen. Well, there was bound to be some clipping, so let's turn down the signal of Generate 3 here. You could use an external attenuator or attenuverter, but I'm just using the controls on Generate 3 itself. So we kind of lost the pinging. I was hoping we could get it in there a little bit. Aha, but channel 3 was tuned really low, drowning our DC ping. And then we can still low pass filter it here. And maybe let's try some feedback patching here. Let's use the phase output to change well, maybe the center of the filter, although I expect there will be some clipping at some frequencies. Oh, no, this is nice. Now we lost our ping, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, that's cool. Let's use this. Maybe let's use the magnitude output to modulate. Well, maybe the low pass filter here. That's nice as well. Let's use an output of contour 1 to change the frequency of the reference oscillator. Let's take the phase output here once again to well, modulate something, or maybe use it as an input source. Oh, that's interesting as well. And well, to finish things off, let's listen to this in stereo. Let's take this as a left and that as the right. Yeah. Well, this turned out even more interesting than I had thought. And I mean the module, not my video or my explanations here, because once again, take everything I said with a grain of salt, because frankly, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. But of course, there will be future videos where I will show you a little bit more methodical things with Collide 4. But well, it's if you want something experimental that you can still use in a regular synth context, this is really, really cool. Nice one, Joran and Hainbach. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this kind of video. It's always a little bit of hit and miss, these kind of first impression and I don't know what I'm doing videos. I'm doing these quotation marks. And you might think that I'm just pretending to not knowing what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing here. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.